everyone, Lisa here from Nannies on Call. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about interviews and some tips for interviewing in a COVID world. We all know that interviewing on a good day is tough as it is, let alone throwing a pandemic into things. So one of the things that I want to start with is talk to you a little bit about the difference, what a regular interview normally would look like compared to what you can expect now. Normally you get a phone call from somebody saying, I received your resume, we'd like to meet you, here's our address, come on over, shake hands, on you go. Things are a little different, or I should say a lot. Right now what most of the families are doing is they're starting with like an online video chat, if you will. Some of the most common ones are Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp. Make sure to be comfortable with whichever outlet you're using. So if you get a link for a Zoom meeting, for example, make sure that you go on and test it beforehand. There's nothing worse than arriving for the interview, either being late because you can't log in, or finding out that you don't have the proper audio on, whatever that could be. There's so many ways that this could go wrong. Technical difficulties happen all the time, so it's better to be prepared if you can. So always log in first, always test it out, make sure it's working so that you feel confident, you're not stressed before the video. The next step normally would be to have an in-person meeting. Now, some people choose to meet somewhere outside. Some people are choosing to have the nanny come into the home. I always think it is a good idea if you get to that next stage to see the working environment. You want to see where you would potentially be working and make sure that it's comfortable for you. There's nothing worse than going for an interview thinking that you're going to have your own space, only to find out that mom and dad are both working from home, from the kitchen. They're in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment, and you're not allowed to leave. So those are really important things to not only talk about, but also to really kind of be able to see too. So when you are asked to go for an in-home interview, so the next step, make sure that you know the family's rules. So are they asking you to wear a mask during the indoor meeting? Are they asking you to wear a mask at all times during work hours? It's really important also that you make sure that you carry your own sanitizer and an extra mask at all times. As soon as you enter the family's home, ask to wash your hands. That just shows that you're obviously being very mindful of the pandemic and that you don't want to be spreading any germs. I've just got my handy notes here, so let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. And then when you're actually in the interview, so make sure that you're asking about the day-to-day on the job. Again, making sure that you have a clear understanding of what the family's expectations are during your workday. Also make sure to ask about what their rules are for their children. You want to make sure that you understand, are guests allowed to come in the home? Are they having play dates? Are you allowed to visit the park? Things like that. Those are all very important for you to know because you don't want to mess up any of what they had in their mind as to what their family rules are. It's better to get those clear expectations right away so that you know if you feel comfortable being in that environment. The other part that you want to make sure to find out is, can you visit the park? Are the children allowed to go in stores? Do they prefer that they wear masks or they don't? Those are all really important things to talk about. The other thing to ask and make sure that you have a clear understanding on is whether or not the parents are working from home. I find that a lot of people are right now and probably will continue to do so for the next while. So you want to make sure that there's clear expectations on both sides. Maybe bring up some scenarios such as what would happen if little Molly comes knocking on your door asking for a cookie. You want to make sure that you're the one that's in charge. This is your workplace. This is, it makes things very difficult if you're not able to be in charge, essentially. So make sure that you ask the parents about their work situation. And you'll find too that I think a lot of them, especially if they've been doing this for the last 9 months, have an understanding of what the expectations should be, that the nanny, is in charge during work hours. Before accepting a job, you want to make sure that you have had a chance, if you've met with the family, great. You also want to make sure that you've had a chance to be in the work environment. I strongly recommend during these crazy times that you have a working paid trial shift. So this will allow you for 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever you guys agree upon, to go in, work with the family, again, making sure that you're wearing a mask, and abiding by the family's rules. And just really seeing if you jive well. I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of people these days is parents working from home. Make sure that if you're doing a working trial that you discuss the wage amount beforehand. There's nothing worse than expecting, my expected wage expectations are $25 an hour, and you get there and they pay you 10. So make sure you discuss that beforehand. Typically the family will pay cash or check, and that would be untaxed because you are not their employee yet. The other thing is speaking on employee, if they do offer you the job, make sure that you've got a solid contract in place. especially during COVID, you want to make sure that there's certain additions to the regular, days and times, wage, duties. Those are all like obviously the main things. You make sure that there's under the sickness clause that there's something in there about COVID. Make sure that you are being compensated if anybody has any sort of symptoms, if it's you, if it's the family. Make sure that there's something in there about all the logistics. And with talking about the contract, the other last thing that you want to make sure of is that you have all of the details laid out beforehand. There's nothing worse. I get these phone calls all the time from people saying that, we talked about it in the interview and then they're not doing it. So make sure that all of that is crystal clear for both sides, less headaches down the road. The other thing too is with the holidays fast approaching, it's really important to find out whether or not the family will be having family coming in from out of town. If so, are they going to be quarantining? That sort of thing. You want to make sure that you guys have those discussions beforehand. So it is really a strange time, to say the least, and I just wanted to say that the more communication that you have with the potential parents or employers that you have will alleviate a lot of stress down the road. I wish you the best of luck on your interviews and landing a great job. Take care.